Maintaining kilns and kiln furniture is really imperative when you're running a studio. Now, this is a glaze drip that was pretty excessive from one of my student pieces. I do use patties underneath their pieces to collect most glaze strips, but that one, for whatever reason, had a big old run. And this will need some TLC. You always want to maintain your kiln shelves and get off any drips before they get worse, because if you don't, they're just going to continue to eat in the shelf. Now, I do have kiln wash on the top surfaces only of both of these shelves, but it won't prevent glaze from getting on there. It just makes it easier to get off. So you can see that right here it ran on the edge and the patty has stuck a little bit, and I'm going to be cleaning that. You can see it really ran quite a bit. A lot of it is right there on that other shelf. Not exactly sure what the student did there to cause all that problem, but now I have to fix it. Now, in the bottom of the kiln, there is a drip that has dripped onto the soft brick. It went down between the two half shelves. That must be fixed. So in order to get this out of the soft brick, I'm just using something a little bit to get underneath that and to hopefully pop that up, and I'm going to use some pliers. Sorry, I apologize that I'm blocking the view there with my shoulder. I was trying not to, but I've got a little bit of a knife there, and I pop that up. Now, again, the reason that I would not want to leave that in the bottom of the kiln is that will continue to melt with each glaze firing, and it would just eat in there and go deeper and deeper. You want to get those things out as soon as you can. Now, with maintaining the kiln brick, you can see there's a little crack in there. It's a minor crack. It's not a big deal, those tiny, very small minor things. You just want to, watch for it. You can see some other pieces that I just pulled out, and it must have all just been one piece that went a little haywire. And now in the bottom, you can see there is a kind of a divot down in there. Now all the little loose pieces that are there around the edge of maybe some broken patties that have fallen off the edge of the shelf, I'm going to clean those off in a moment. Here I'm powering off the kiln. I am going to be vacuuming in this out, and you need to either have the kiln unplugged or powered off entirely. My kilns have direct wiring, so they can't be unplugged. Now, when you are vacuuming, it does create a lot of static electricity. This is why you have it completely powered off with no electricity going to the kiln. I am going to be vacuuming not only the debris in the bottom, I'm vacuuming in the holes in the bottom, and I'm going to be vacuuming the elements themselves, because if you had anything that ever, say, you had a little explosion of a bisque-fired piece, or a little patty or something that some particles went airborne, you want to get those out so it does not stay in the elements and just kind of melt with successive firings, especially if you have anything with glaze on it. You do not want to get glaze specks with glaze on it in your elements. So here I am just going around, just trying to get everything up. This is a routine maintenance. I would do this every few months. I would do this in my school kilns just to get them all maintained real nicely, and especially if you ever blew up something, you got to get that done really well anytime you have an explosion of something. Explosions can always be prevented if it is dry enough. Sometimes people will have things blow up and they're like, I don't know why it blew up. It was dry. Well, it wasn't dry enough. So you can prevent that by doing a preheat on your kiln under 200 degrees before the water vapor turns to steam. That will help to make sure that you get it all dry. And here I am also vacuuming the upper edge, because you get a lot of debris, especially if you have a vent fan in the bottom of it and it's pulling air through. It will pull a little air through there. So I'm just trying to get everything. It's a little hard with holding the camera, obviously. and I have to reconfigure my little 1-inch posts there. And there I'm showing, obviously, no power at all to the kiln. Okay, so now I have on goggles, and I do have on a dust mask. Here I am going to be using a hammer and chisel to get off the big area of glaze that dripped all over. Now, you could use perhaps just, like that metal scraper, but that wasn't going to be good enough. I knew that I needed to use a hammer and chisel because this was a lot of glaze that came off. Now, since I made this video in my home studio, I have some advancer kiln shelves, which are great because advancers, glaze just pops off real nicely off of those. And I did order some kind of as a legacy when I left and retired from school. I did order some advancers, which make the cleanup a lot easier. So again, I am wearing eye protection, I'm wearing goggles, and I'm wearing a dust mask to make sure that I'm not inhaling any of the particles that have gone airborne. And now I'm just sweeping off some of that debris with a broom and getting some that's on the edge, that drip that was on the edge there. I'm using a rub brick now just to also get off any little pieces. By the way, I often would do this outside. Oh, you can see that I was wearing the mask there. So I do this outside. So again, maybe I'm not making this airborne dust in the classroom. So, but I am wearing a mask. And there I'm just getting all that glaze off the very edge. I do my best not to make divots, but sometimes it happens. Okay, and there's the rub brick. Now, this part I'm using an angle grinder. Okay, so the angle grinder is a great little tool if you are going to be cleaning up a shelf and you have to scrape off very much. So I removed the regular angle grinder blade. Oh, you know what? I'm not using the typical one that I use. I forgot. Okay, so typically what I use for an angle grinder is a cupped blade. I'll see if I can't find a video that shows that. The cupped blade, I was replacing the angle grinder with a better blade. But you could use just a regular angle grinder like this, or again, I prefer the cupped blade. The cupped blade, the diamond cup, does a really good job. And there, I'm just using the edge to grind that down a little bit. So once I get that off of there, then I will be done, getting off the glaze chunks. Oh, and one thing that I almost mentioned before, but I forgot, never kind of sweep off the kiln with your hand, because you could have little teeny tiny shards of glaze on there that you're not even aware of, and you could really cut your hand up pretty significantly. Okay, so I'm still working on the edge there, just softening up some of those edges where it was cut. And now that little tiny bit on the back was apparently the shelf from the underneath side kissed the top edge of a pot at one time, and there was a little glaze on there. So again, I just like to get those off as soon as I can so it doesn't eat into the shelf more and more. Now, the next step is I would, oh, it looks like maybe this is another shelf now. I have a little spot there. I'm just getting that off. And this is, of course, in my classroom again. And then there's the rub brick again. That just gets anything loose off of it. Again, wear dust mask and eye protection when you do that. Okay, now I would always take a sponge and sponge off the shelf just to kind of wet it a little bit. And this also gets the dust that is loose there. And then after I sponge it and it feels smooth, it's clean. Now you can see that I don't have a lot of dust that's loose there. Now I'm ready to actually apply fresh kiln wash. And the kiln wash is there for glazed items. So I keep my kiln wash all mixed up. I actually put some marbles down in the bottom of my thing so I can like shake it up. This one I've already mixed up. This kiln wash, I use a blend of kiln wash. This is a little bit of a blend of a glass fusing kiln wash and regular kiln wash. I don't like kiln wash that flakes in big thick chunks, so I use a little bit of the glass kiln wash too. This is very, very, very thin, like way thinner than skim milk. And when you put it on, it should never be puddled. You want to put it on thinly because, again, you don't want it to chip off and chunk. If you have kiln wash that chips off, it can float in the atmosphere if you have a little breeze in there, and it can float down and get on someone else's piece. Or if you turn your shelf sideways, it can be problematic and fall off. So when I load, I always keep it very flat when I load a shelf, so nothing falls off of that shelf onto what's below. Now that is the one where I had to kind of dig out the little divot there, so I was reapplying just a little bit more to get a little bit more of a thickness. I want to have a buildup of a few layers of kiln wash on the surface of the kiln shelf. Now that it's vacuumed out again, you can see I have 3 posts. I am straddling the middle of the kiln, 3 posts per half shelf. 3 posts are always going to be recommended because it won't rock when you have 3 posts. And I'm going to be placing them in there. And then when I put the posts for the next layer on top, they should always be directly over the posts that are underneath there. Post over post will help to prevent warping of the shelves. So that's my little tutorial on maintaining a kiln, the interior and the kiln shelves. So drop me any questions that you might have below.